We are still talking road safety as part of GhanaWeb's road safety campaign series. Today, we are where the entire conversation regarding road safety begins. I'm referring to the Driver and Vehicle Licensing Authority. We are currently at the Office of the Vehicle Inspection and Registration. I'd like to take a quick break here. When we return, we introduce our guest. Please stay tuned. Welcome back. My name is Lord Harris Idasari, and today our guest on the GhanaWeb Road Safety Campaign series is the Acting Deputy Director of the Vehicle Inspection and Registration at the DVLA. He's in the person of Mr. Eric Bento Addison. Mr. Addison.
Hello, Lord.
Thanks for coming on board.
And thank you very much for finding time to pay us a visit.
Great. It's great to have DVLA.
It's an honor.
As our partners.
Sure.
Yeah, let's just get straight to it. Why is licensing and maintenance important in the first place?
Thank you very much for the opportunity once again. When you talk about maintenance of vehicles, I suppose vehicles are equipment that we use on our roads. Like human beings, occasionally you have to visit your physician, your doctor, to run some routine checks on you. It's just the same as vehicles, because they are vehicles that we normally run day in, day out.
Okay.
So occasionally you find some of the parts wearing out and all that. So it is very important that periodically you do what we call periodic maintenance of the vehicle. You do periodic maintenance by checking your brakes, you check your lights, you check most of the running parts, your tires, the interior, and everything that is testable on the vehicle. So it's quite important for you to maintain your vehicle periodically.
Okay, let's do it this way. We are going to divide the conversation into two.
Sure.
First, we'll talk about licensing of drivers, and then we come to maintenance of the vehicle. So let's start with the licensing to begin with. Who qualifies to get a license?
Okay, so now we are talking about driver's license. If you look at the law, the road traffic regulation is very clear that license is supposed to be issued to people who are at 18 years at the time of application.
Okay.
You should be of sound mind. And so at the time of application, it is expected that you will be 18 years and of sound mind before you qualify to acquire what we call a learner license as a beginner.
So even if you are turning 18, or as we previously would say, maybe I'm 17 and 11 months old, I can't apply for a license.
No, you still don't qualify. It should be 18 years at the time of application.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Then we'll take you through some oral test, and then when you pass, we'll give you what we call learner license. Now, for the learner license is issued to an applicant for a period of 3 months. Now, within this period, we expect you to have some appreciable level of training with a recognized driving school. So more often than not, we say that you must have about 48-hour contact hours with a driving school. Yes, okay. Meaning you're not supposed to be in the classroom for 2 days continuous, okay. Right? So you do part of the training in classroom and part of the training on the road.
Okay.
Now, within this period, when you are done with the 48-hour compulsory tuition, then we will arrange for a test. Now, the test is more often a multiple choice question test, and which you are expected to have 70% out of the questions that you are expected to attempt all. Now, there are 30 multiple choice questions that comes with answers, and you're expected to pass, that is 21 out of the 30 questions correct.
Okay.
Now, when you pass this theory test stage, then you will be booked for what we call the in-traffic test stage. But between the in-traffic test and then the practical test, we will subject you to oral test, what we call the oral test. We want to test your knowledge on the road signs. We want to test your knowledge on the some aspect of the lane markings and all that, because the examiner wants to ascertain whether you really do understand the rules of the road, even though you may have passed
the written exam.
The written exams. You still have to be subjected to the this test before we can ascertain you or can pass you to the final test, that is the in-traffic test. But before you even do the in-traffic test, some of our operational officers do have an in-year test facility where you have dedicated road markings. Okay, we have dedicated roads within the in-yard where you have stop signs, where you have intersections that have been designed. Now, the reason why we do this is that because you want to subject the applicant to real situations on the road. You still want to ascertain whether the person understands the dangers that the person is going to face on the road.
Okay.
So you want to test the person's ability to stop at intersections, the person's recognition of certain road signs and road markings before finally we subject the person to the real road traffic situations.
So where more like a mock
exactly
sort of.
Exactly.
Okay.
So we have these facilities in Tema and Kumasi. So those applicants who find themselves in these two testing areas, we do subject them to the in-yard testing. We call them in-yard testing. In-yard before we finally subject you to the in-traffic real situation driving test.
Okay. Before we even continue with the written examinations, are they done in other languages?
Yes, currently the test is conducted in the English language.
Okay.
Now, plans are far advanced to translate this test into about 5 of our Ghanaian languages. Truth of the matter is that driving is a skill. You need technique. It's not the person's ability to read and write only, but it's a skill that the person will have to develop. So we are in the final stages of trying to interpret these English tests to 5 local dialects. Now, it's not only going to be read and write, but you're going to listen to instructions based on the dialect that you are conversant with. So you sit in the exam hall, you tuck in your audio device, and then you listen to instructions, and then you answer appropriately according to the language that you are convenient with. So that is what we are heading towards.
Okay. I asked this because now many times you find out that you come across several drivers who do not have good appreciation of the English language, but I know that the written exams are prerequisites to get a license.
Exactly.
But these people have licenses.
Yeah.
So how did they arrive at
So let me
license?
explain. So we introduced the computer-based test in 2007. Yes, okay. 2007. But before that, DVLA was issuing driver's license. It was basically the oral test and then the in-traffic test. And so we have quite a number of drivers who are driving with the old driver's licenses. That's before we actually started the computer-based test. You understand? Okay. So we do have a large number of drivers who are driving with the old licenses that we've converted to the new ones. So it's also answers why we have people who do not have a very good an appreciable level of the English language comprehension. So just as I mentioned, we have the old drivers who had earlier on used the old manual driver's license before we actually brought in the computer-based test. But it has also come with these challenges that I mentioned earlier on, that yes, we've actually seen quite a substantial number of people who have sat the exams and yet they have failed. Yeah. Not because they are not good drivers, but because it is quite difficult for them to comprehend the English language. So that is why the authority thought it wise that English language should not be a barrier to driving, because we do have even vehicles that are coming to the country that you have on the instrument console language that is in foreign language. So it tells you that even in other jurisdictions, people are driving and yet they don't even comprehend their English language. Yeah. You go to Germany, English language is not a prerequisite for you to get a driver's license. Okay. And so as an authority, we are saying that we want to meet international best practices. International best practices, English does not become a barrier, or language does not become a barrier to one's ability to drive. Driving is a skill, it's a technique. And so if the person can demonstrate an appreciable level of that skill, why not? So that is why we are taking this giant step to actually translate the English language regime of this computer-based test to 5 of our local languages for people to take their exams.
Okay, sure. So, Mr. Addison, what are the timelines to these things that you have mentioned? Are we working with a specific timeline?
Oh, yes. We know we started this journey some years back, and it takes a process, and it takes a whole lot of stakeholder consultations and all that. We've come a very long journey. It is quite possible that next year, hopefully somewhere next year, we'll see this intervention being rolled out.
I know that the digitization of the licensing was to a large extent supposed to curb the incidence of what we term guru boys, right? But it appears that the phenomenon is still very prevalent. How is that?
Yes, we are looking at 2 issues here. You made mention of digitization. Yes, the idea about this digitization was to bring the services closer to the doorstep of our clients, and also make sure that our services are up to the level where we can integrate all our standalone systems. Now, if you mention digitization, we are looking at 1, the driver licensing regime, and then 2, digitizing our old and existing vehicle records.
Okay.
To this extent, we've also chucked some success by digitizing from 1995 that we did re-registration of all the vehicles in the country up to 2019. Okay. So it's quite possible by the end of this year, hopefully by the middle of next year, we should be able to finish with 2020. You touch base of this issue of middlemen, popularly known as guru boys. As far as we are concerned, DVLA do not have any interaction with guru boys. If you look at our operations, especially with regards to vehicle registration, if you look at the design of the process flow, it gives opportunity for importers, owners of vehicle who do not have the time to transact business with DVLA to effect the transaction through their authorized agent. Authorized agent. So, for example, you've probably shipped a vehicle into a country. You are a consignee to a vehicle. You don't find the time to come to DVLA to transact the business of probably registering the vehicle. Our laws are very clear. The regulation even gives approval for the owner or the consignee to probably assign his authorized agent to transact the business of registration of the vehicle into his name. Now, that does not preclude that you have to engage a guru boy to do that activity.
But at this point, I'm not even looking at a vehicle now. We'll get to the vehicles. I'm still talking about the drivers. We still have.
So you're talking about the driver's license.
Middlemen procuring driver's license for drivers. I've heard of situations where people are not there presently by themselves, and they are still able to get
so
their license.
Let me tell you what. The licensing regime has come very far. If you follow the trend of the driver's license, started way back where it was a handwritten booklet, we transformed to the booklet type of license, transformed to the PV polyvinyl card, and now we have the biometric card. Now, if you look at all these processes, based on the experiences that we've had in the past, DVLA has painstakingly taken its steps to ensure that all these bottlenecks that we had in the past, by way of challenges, had by way and far been reduced the barriers right now. Currently, as I speak to you now, the system that we've deployed to actually issue driver's license regime requires you, the applicants, to be verified and validated with your biometric details. So in those days, you used to present your passport size photograph for a license. Presently, you can't use your passport size photograph. You have to be there
Yourself.
physically.
Okay.
If you're going to do your exams, you have to log in your registration number. If you are going to take your biometric details, you have to be there in person. We capture all your 10 fingerprints and your live data. So clearly, it tells you that it is like a camel going through the eye of a needle for you to get the driver's license in DVLA 21st century. That sitting at home, getting your details across for someone to do that, it is woefully impossible. Okay. You can't do that. Okay. You need to be there to be taken through the process of the acquisition of a driver's license before you can get it. So we hear the issue whereby people say that, oh, I sat home, I pay 500 Ghana cedis to someone to acquire a driver's license. You will investigate, and what they will bring you verify, and you get to realize that it's not in the database. It's a fake license. Day in, day out, if you go to all the operation offices, they have a stockpile of licenses that they've taken to unsuspecting people who have decided to sit back, pay money to people who have fraudulently taken money from them, and then ended up with a fraudulent document. It cut across from driver's license to vehicle documents, road ready certification, and all that. Okay. So we want to take this opportunity or platform to actually encourage anybody who wants to transact business with DVLA to come up, especially with driver's license or vehicle registration, to come up with DVLA and then transact business with them. The old days where you sit home, get your details to someone to acquire a driver's license for you. The person will take the money, all right, and you end up getting a fake document.
Does that mean that in this regime, if, let's say, in everything we have homeschooling, for want of a better word, so maybe you could have gotten a personal tutor to teach you how to drive. How does someone like that get a valid license? So without going through the
driving school?
The driving school.
So it is compulsory for you to have the 48-hour compulsory tuition from the driving school.
Okay.
So you can have someone who has been driving for about 2 years, okay, to probably taking you through some of the practical side of the driving test procedures. So that one can be a complementary sort of taking you through how to learn how to drive, so to speak. But we want to encourage everybody to get some level of appreciation of the road traffic regulations, because the experience that we've had over the years is that people come to us to tell us, oh, we know how to drive. You subject the person to some tests, and you get to know that, yes, the person can, move a vehicle. The mere fact that you can move a vehicle doesn't certify you to drive. It's part of the problem that we're having on the road. People drive on the slip lane, people drive on the inner lane, and they don't get to know that you must actually understand the rules of engagement on the road. I always tell people that the road that we are traveling on, we share, and there are clear regulations that guides our use of the road. So this can only be learned at the driving school. You understand? It is very quite difficult for someone to impart such knowledge on, unless you go to this recognized driving school that we've clearly come up with training models of defensive driving, rules of engagement of the road, the use of the road, the road signs, the road markings, and all that. So that is why we came up with this policy that at least before you sit for the exams, you should, at the time that you spend with the driving school, you may have had an appreciable understanding of rules of engagement on the road. That is why it becomes compulsory for you to get this tuition from the recognized driving schools that DVLA has sanctioned to undertake this.
Okay.
Powers and principalities.
There's so much fire inside me.
Tragedy struck when part of the largest hillside at the kosher rubbish dump collapsed.
It's going to be fun to see how he goes about approaching
please take us through the typical procedure from Kwen to Kwen. What you are, if you want to get a driver's license, the procedure, what must you go through?
So, just as I mentioned from the beginning,
yes, you have
you must be 18 years and above. You must be of a sound mind. And this time around, what we've done is that you can even start application online. You go online and you start your application, put your details online, and then you can follow up with payments at any of the operation offices where you want your service to be rendered.
Okay.
Now you go with a valid ID card, okay, a valid national ID, the NIA card, the your passport. Now you will be examined. If the examiner is certified with the information that he has, there are times that we may also request additional data like your birth certificate, whatnot. Yeah, especially when
the national ID, then the new one is that also part of the ID?
Yes, certainly. Yes, okay. Yes. We do recognize those ID cards. Now, so we certify, and then you get a learner license. Just as I mentioned, the learner license is valid for 3 months.
Yeah.
So within this 3 months, you are expected to enroll in any of the recognized driving schools that DVLA has certified, of which you undergo the 48-hour compulsory training.
Okay.
Now, in this 3 months, you will also be scheduled for your computer-based test. Now, on your scheduled dates, you sit for your exams, and if you pass, then you move on to be scheduled for the in-traffic test. But just as I mentioned, in between the computer-based test and the in-traffic test, you will be subjected to some oral test. We want to test your appreciation of the road traffic regulations, the road signs, the road markings, road traffic situations, what your response times and all that will be. And then we'll subject you to the in-traffic test. Okay. Now, when you pass the in-traffic test, then we give you a temporary license valid for 1 year. Now, in as much as you have passed the test, okay, you may have passed all this, but it doesn't mean that you are an experienced driver. So as part of the regulations, you will be given a provisional plate, a P plate, for you to display on the vehicle. Now, the reason behind is that you've just passed your test to be certified as a driver. You have your temporary driver's license, but you are not an experienced driver. We do appreciate the fact that you may be making mistakes in traffic. So we give you this plate for you to display in front and behind the plate so that other road users can accord you those courtesies. For example, you are in the thick of a traffic situation and you are driving, especially if you are driving a manual. We do appreciate the fact that the engine will go off one way or the other. That's what people say. So when people see you, they will accord you those courtesies and respect that, oh, this is a new driver on the road. So we give you the space and time for you to make those mistakes. So normally when we give this plates, people find it very reluctant to display this plate. So we take this opportunity to encourage people who have passed the test and they've been given temporary license to display this plate, because it's very, very important you do that. Refusal to do that is a violation of the road traffic regulation and it's punishable and by law. So we encourage people that once you have been certified to drive and you have a temporary license, you should understand that you'll be given 1 year as a provisional driver to display this plate on your vehicle anytime you drive on the road. So you have your license, you don't have limitations. The only limitation is that when you are certified to drive with the aid of lens or a glass, please make sure that anytime you're driving, you have your glasses on. If you're also certified to drive automatic vehicles, you drive only automatic vehicles and you have to simply abide by those limitations. So that is for the acquisition of a driver's license. Yeah.
What are the legal implications if you refuse to drive with a provisional plate?
So just as I mentioned, it's punishable because you are certified to drive. You just passed your driver's your driving test, and you'll be given a probationary license. So I explained that it is appreciable that you may make some mistakes on the road. And even experienced drivers do make mistakes on the road. So as someone who has been certified to drive, it is very, very certain that you'll be making mistakes on the road. That's why we give you this plate to actually sensitize or warn other road users of your presence.
So what punishments are we looking at? Are we fined for say 2,000 or you spend a day in cell? What was the punishment? I think people need to know so that they'll be, because I think I've heard and know a number of people after they pass they wouldn't want to because nobody wants to be treated.
No, it is a policy. It is a regulation that if you pass the test, you should display your provisional plate on the road. Yes, and it's punishable by law.
Okay, but you can't tell us what it is yet.
Certainly.
Okay, when someone's driver's license expires, is there like a grace period to renew?
So the law is very specific on this matter. You have 30 days to expiry to renew your driver's license. The driver's license that we give out is renewable every 2 years. So every 2 years, you undergo what we call an eye screening. Okay, so when you do the eye screening, you pass that test. I forgot to mention that even as part of the requirement for you to do the learner license, you undertake an eye test as well for you to pass a minimum specification before you move on. So with the renewal of driver's license as well, you will also undergo the same eye screening. And if you pass, what we do is we actually take your data and then we update our database, and then we put a hologram behind your driver's license to actually authenticate your license, to tell you that your license has been renewed. Now, every 2 years, you are supposed to renew your license. Within 6 years, the card is replaceable. What we do is that we will take the card and then issue you with a new card.
All right, Mr. Addison, now let's move to the maintenance part of the vehicles.
That's right.
What does it entail to maintain one's vehicle?
Yes, thank you for the opportunity once again. Vehicle maintenance, just as I mentioned earlier on, as human beings, the doctors will always say that every year you're supposed to visit your doctor or your physician to undergo tests to ensure that your systems are functioning very well. It is so for vehicles as well. I said in the beginning that vehicles are equipment that we use normally, and there are several running parts that do wear by the time. And so it becomes very, very important for vehicles to undergo periodic maintenance. Now, it's quite unfortunate at this part of the world, you see a lot of people who will run the vehicle till the vehicle fails or the vehicle gets destroyed. I call them run to fail. Okay, it's a reactive form of vehicle maintenance. You understand? But if you maintain your vehicle consistently, be it time or be it the number of times that you run this vehicle periodically, then you are assured that your vehicle will not be running down unexpectedly. You will have the efficiency of the vehicle and all that. So at DVLA, if you look at the law or the regulations that gives us the powers to examine vehicles, to test the condition, the use, and the accessories of the vehicle, it tells us that periodically, you, the owner of the vehicle, will have to present the vehicle for examination to be certified as roadworthy. Now, if it is a vehicle that is being used for private purpose, the whole year, that is 365 days in a year, you subject the vehicle for this test once in every year. But if it's a commercial vehicle, you have to subject this test for vehicle twice in a year. So basically, what we do at DVLA in terms of examination is to certify the vehicles by testing the brakes, you test the suspension, we test everything, including the tires, to ensure that all these are in conformity to regulations and then the standards that we set in the use, the condition, and they use, the condition, and other accessories of the vehicle.
Okay.
So it is very important that you maintain your vehicle periodically to ensure that they run at an optimum level.
So what are the features of a vehicle that you can consider as roadworthy?
If you look at Regulation 5, it is very clear on the conditions that DVLA is supposed to test to ensure the use and the condition of the vehicle. Now, if you look at our scheme of services, DVLA has gone ahead to certify vehicle testing stations to ensure that we don't only do physical examination of the vehicle, but we do equipment-based tests.
Okay.
Initially, we're doing a lot more physical-based tests, but this time around, we have gone ahead to do equipment-based tests, just to ensure that the examination outcome is not very subjective, but objective, because we are measuring the performance of the various components of the vehicle to a certain standard. So, for example, if you are testing a brake, you are testing efficiency. You can't test efficiency of the brake by doing physical inspection alone. You need to do equipment-based tests to set the parameters against some standards to ensure that the vehicles or the brakes are functioning to a particular level. So we do equipment-based tests for 6 major components of the vehicle. That is brakes, suspension, alignment, the headlamp test, and then we do testing for the tires. The tires, we are checking at the thread depth. If you look at the tire, there are grooves on the tires, and the law says that you must have some minimum depth of that particular groove that you have on the tires. So we measure all these parameters of the vehicle and come up with the conclusion that this vehicle is certified to be on the road or otherwise.
Yeah. I see. Thank you so much, Mr. Addison.
Thank you very much for your time.